The Rise of Wei. A Village Comeback. In a quiet Chinese village nestled in the mountains, there lived a young man named Wei. Every day, like most villagers, Wei toiled from sunrise to sunset, working hard but barely scraping by. He dreamed of something more, of breaking free from the endless cycle of work and struggle, but that seemed like a distant fantasy. One afternoon, as Wei sat by the edge of the village square, an old traveler passed through. The man, with his silver hair and weathered face, looked at Wei's worn expression and paused. "You seem troubled, young man," the traveler said. Wei sighed. "I work hard, yet it feels like I'm stuck in the same place. No matter how much I earn, it's never enough." The old man smiled, sitting beside him. "Wealth doesn't come from how much you earn. It comes from how you use what you have." With that, he walked away, leaving Wei puzzled, but something had sparked in him. That evening, Wei returned home and sat at his small wooden table. He emptied his pockets, only a few coins, but instead of spending them on food and drink like his friends, Wei tucked them into a small box. It wasn't much, but he felt different, more in control. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was planning. Months passed. Wei saved a little every week. At first, it felt insignificant, but over time, his small box filled with coins. His friends, meanwhile, laughed and spent their money as soon as they earned it. They bought new clothes, visited the village market, and indulged in festival foods. When the annual festival arrived, the village was alive with excitement. Everyone was preparing for the grand celebration. New outfits, feasts, and decorations. Wei's friends teased him, urging him to join them in spending. The temptation was strong, but instead of joining them, Wei decided to stay back, holding onto his coins. "You're missing out," one of his friends called as they headed to the market. Wei smiled to himself, knowing that one day his patience would pay off. One day, a merchant arrived in the village, offering the locals a chance to invest in his business. Most of the villagers scoffed at the idea, saying it was too risky. Wei, though nervous, saw this as his opportunity. He had been quietly saving for nearly a year now and had enough to take a chance. He gave the merchant his savings, not knowing what the future held, but trusting in the possibility of something more. Months went by without news, and Wei sometimes wondered if he had been foolish. His friends mocked him for wasting his money on something so uncertain. But Wei held on to his hope, knowing that sometimes the greatest rewards come from the greatest risks. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the mountains, the merchant returned to the village. With a smile, he handed Wei back twice what he had invested. It was more money than Wei had ever seen at once in his life. His hands shook as he counted the coins, realizing the power of the choices he had made. That night, as the villagers gathered around a campfire by the lake, Wei sat quietly, reflecting on his journey. The fire crackled, and the glow of the flames flickered in the water. His friends were celebrating, drinking and laughing, but eventually they turned to him. "How did you do it, Wei?" one of them asked, marveling at his newfound fortune. "We all work the same, yet somehow you've gained so much more." Wei stared into the fire for a long moment before answering. "It wasn't about working harder," he said softly. "It was about making better choices. I saved when you spent. I waited when you jumped. And when the time came, I took a chance." The night grew quiet as his friends listened. The fire burned low, and the stars shimmered above the lake. As the embers died down, Wei stood up, the weight of his new wealth in his pouch. He walked along the dirt path back to the village, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He had started with nothing, just like everyone else, but now he had control over his future. The village streets were dark and still as Wei returned home. He opened his door, knowing that while the village hadn't changed, he had. He wasn't just surviving anymore. Now he was thriving. And as he lay down to rest, the thought filled him with pride.